Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lisa Nutt, Chair of the Professional Development Committee for the Tucson Association of Realtors. Welcome to today's webinar from the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. We have three panelists joining us this afternoon. We'll begin with Wendy Flood. Thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone. I am Wendy Flood. As mentioned, I work for the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. We have a very exciting and informative presentation for you today on Superfund sites and disclosure. Just as a little tidbit of information, I'm born and raised in Arizona and actually from Tucson. Went to Amphi High School. So you all are near and dear to my heart. My mom still lives there. So yay. Anyway, so that's just, and I've been with the agency over 20 years. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the other two ladies that are joining me today. Teresa?
Hi, I'm Teresa Marks. I'm relatively new to ADEQ. I have worked with federal level Superfund sites, primarily in Ohio and Tennessee. So I did go to U of A though, so Tucson is also near and dear to my heart. Lynette, you want to go?
Yes. Hi, my name is Lynette Lopez. I'm one of the review engineers in the groundwater protection value stream here at ADEQ. I do environmental permits associated with on-site systems along with sewage collection systems. I'm not from Arizona originally. I've only been here 10 years, but I really love it. And Tucson is very beautiful, so I travel there a lot.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Lisa and the other, I didn't catch the other lady's name who's helping us out. Are you going to let us know if there's questions? Okay. Okay. So just feel free to stop us or something. If people have questions, we'll try to stop, but if there's also questions, let us know. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Well, here's just a little bit about us and who we are as an agency. So ADQ was established in 1987, and we are a cabinet level environmental agency. We do have offices in Phoenix and Tucson. It's over off of Congress, I believe. And we also have community liaisons throughout the entire state to help with with our rural areas. ADQ carries out several core functions from planning, permitting, compliance management, monitoring, assessment, cleanups, and outreach. And outreach is some of why we are here with you all today. Today, ADQ is protecting human health and the environment even better. We have achieved some breakthroughs in citizens engagement, cost effectiveness, and most importantly, our mission outcomes. We have had numerous representatives from states and even other countries come and talk to us and have us go over how we did all of these mission outcomes and effective, policies and procedures and stuff. So, and we've actually, as you can see here, won a few awards for the environmental work we are doing right here in the state of Arizona. Next slide. This is just a little bit of what we have done in terms of waters treated, who we've assisted for healthy drinking water, how the air quality, even though population has grown, actually the air quality has gotten better, actually, believe it or not, because of some of the efforts of you all and ADQ. Back in 2015, only 75% of Arizonans were drinking healthy water, but thanks in part to funding initiatives supported by our legislature and some of our policies and procedures improvements, 99% of Arizonans are now being provided with healthy drinking water today. So that is an amazing accomplishment. And we've helped over 200 water systems throughout the entire state. But why are we here today specifically? And I'll turn it over to Teresa.
So we are going to talk about some of the disclosures that you will see on your disclosure form for when you sell a site. We're specifically going to concentrate on Superfund, WRF, and CERCLA, but towards the end, we will show you how you can also look for things like landfills or hazardous waste facilities or storage tanks. And we are also going to give you contacts for those agency contacts. So if you have questions about a site, You want to know what it's next to, you can call the right person. And we finally are going to end by showing you how to actually use our eMaps site. Linus is actually here to talk to you specifically about on-site wastewater or septic systems, as it's more commonly called, and some issues that we are dealing with in terms of trying to change some of those regulations. I muted myself accidentally. You guys are probably familiar with this. This is your Title IV, Chapter 28 in the state administrative code. And this tells you that you have to disclose to your parties if there is any of the issues that are on your little disclosure form. And if not, you can have some really bad stuff happen to you. And so many of you are aware of this, but you maybe don't know where to go to find the right information. So that's what we're going to show you how to do today. So here's your disclosure statement. If you look, we are specifically going to talk about lines 219 and 220, where it says, is the property located or subject to any of the following ordinances? And this first one says Superfund, Wharf, or CERCLA. And most people don't know what those are. So we're going to go over what those are and how you would actually determine whether a site is near one of these locations. And instead of just Googling it, we're going to show you the right way to do it, because these sites do change over time and we need to make sure you have the latest information.
So the biggest thing to keep in mind with these sites as we talk about them is most of our sites in the metropolitan Phoenix and Tucson areas are primarily a groundwater contamination. There's very little soil or surface contamination. If there is, it's either already been cleaned up or it's restricted in some way. And your water suppliers, the city of Tucson or any other private water systems that would supply your drinking water, they're required by federal and state standards to test that water pretty much daily to ensure that it is that it can be served to you. So just kind of keep that in mind, that and in Arizona, pretty much what we're dealing with is more of a groundwater issue, and we're going to go over groundwater and what that means, but that can be anywhere from 30 to 1,000 feet underground. So in terms of exposure, that's not something you and I would really deal with in our daily lives. But pretty much all water in Arizona at some point may need to be used for drinking water. So we got to make sure that it's clean and ready for that purpose.
Yeah, so most people know the term Superfund, but they don't really understand, kind of what it means. So Superfund was actually a law called CERCLA that was passed in 1980, and that stands for the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act. And basically, the reason it got kind of nicknamed Superfund was it set up a fund using money from like petroleum and other chemical manufacturers to clean up hazardous waste sites when there was nobody responsible around anymore. They had gone out of business, declared bankruptcy, etc. And so that there would be money available to clean up these sites. You'll often also hear the term NPL when we refer to these sites, and that stands for National Priorities List. And just like it sounds like, we're all thinking Christmas, there's a Christmas list. Well, this is a list of hazardous waste sites that need to be cleaned up across the country. And so the money is used by the federal government, administered by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to clean up these sites. The Superfund sites on the federal level are like the bigger sites, usually the ones that'll have a little bit more, stuff going on. And so, they require a lot of agency input and a lot of groups working together. And the state of Arizona, our department, does work with the federal government on these sites to make sure that we know what's happening and that our input is given on what's going to happen with these sites. So Tucson, you have a Superfund site, and that happens to be at your international airport. A lot of these sites are now sites where people accidentally spilled stuff back in the day, or they poured stuff down the drain, not realizing that had a bad impact on the environment. Or they bury it out back thinking if you bury it, it's gone, you won't see it anymore. And now we know that a lot of these things are hazardous. And so these sites we need to clean up. And you'll notice there's like a little boundary here in blue that you can see, that is what we call the plume. That is where the contamination has found, like in the groundwater. And we have a little map that shows you where these different sites are. So, if you live near one of these sites, you should know that you live near one of these sites, and that's what the disclosure is on your form.
But keep in mind too that at these sites, like I mentioned earlier, water is provided by your public, by your municipal water provider. And if there are any drinking water wells in the area, which I'm pretty sure that for in Tucson, they're not, they're shut down, abandoned, or they are being treated and cleaned to the drinking water standard.
Yeah, mostly it's an issue if you have a well, a private well on your property, you can have somebody come and test it if you're near one of these sites, and then we can help you if you need that water for whatever purpose. We can help you, clean that water or use that water so that it is safe to use. So at the state level, we have our own super fund, which is called WARF, and that stands for Water Quality Assurance Revolving Fund, and it works basically the same way. So if there is a responsible party, the person who made the nasty mess, and they're still around, then we can get money from them to clean it up. If they're not around anymore, then the state will pay to clean up those sites. We do also have a program if anybody is involved with commercial realty, where a commercial group could come in and buy a contaminated land and clean it up themselves and get some benefits from that. So that's called our voluntary remediation program. And if anybody does commercial, we have a contact at the end that you can contact about getting more information about that. So here is our groundwater. So basically, if you look at the picture, the top part, you've got your trees and your grass. And then underneath you have, what we technically consider soil, like this is where you plant your vegetables and stuff. And then underneath is sand and gravel. And then underneath that, the gravel and sand is wet. The spaces in between are filled with water, and that's what we call groundwater. And also you'll hear the term aquifer. Aquifer is just an area of groundwater. So Wendy likes to use the analogy of like when you walk along the beach and you're walking in the sand and you squish down the sand, you see the water come out of it. It's kind of the same thing that would be like an aquifer. It's sand with water kind of mixed into
I like the beach, so hey.
it. Hey, it works, right?
It works.
So this is one of your local Superfund sites. This is at 7th Street and Arizona Avenue. A lot of the state Superfund sites are old dry cleaning facilities. A lot of the chemicals they use to get your clothes clean at the dry cleaners are actually kind of hazardous chemicals. And they used to accidentally spill it. They used to pour it down the drain. And, now we don't do any of that. All of that stuff is regulated. You get in big trouble if you try to do that now. But in the olden days, we didn't know. And so they poured it down the drain. And then what you get is a plume. So at one end of the site will be where the dry cleaners was. And then the groundwater moves. And as it moves, it takes the contamination with it and it creates this plume. And that's where the area of the wharf site would be, is within this plume. And we usually say maybe a quarter mile around it, you want to know that you are very close to these sites. These sites over time, as we monitor them and we do treatment to them and all of that, they will shrink. You have one in your area at Broadway and Pantano that used to be huge, and now it's a little tiny spot. And that's because over time, the chemicals have come out of that groundwater. And then the third type of site you have are your DOD sites. These are former DOD sites, and they are called FUDs, formerly used defense sites. Some of them are still active. I'll show you Davis-Monthan in a minute. Everybody knows where that is, right? And some of them are not. So like down near Swarrito, there is an area where they used to train people in World War II in order to like do desert warfare. And there's an area where there are some unexploded ordnances, those clay things that they shoot, and other things that were left over from when that was used as a training facility. And when we have these kinds of sites, it's usually the EPA or the Army Corps of Engineers that's responsible for And here is Davis Monthan Air Force Base. So anywhere on this site that has former munitions or chemicals or whatever happened there, then the Corps of Engineers is responsible for helping. Wendy, you want to take over?
Sure. But before I do, have any questions come through yet? No? Okay, awesome. All right, so so how many of these sites are we dealing with? Like, how many does Arizona have? So this is a breakdown of the three sites that Teresa had gone over in regard to the state and then the actual Maricopa County. Now, we usually do this presentation in Maricopa County, so we probably should have done it for Pima, but if you can probably guess, Maricopa and Pima would have the most because that is where most of the industry, most of the dry cleaning was. But they are throughout the entire state. So in terms of our state wharf sites or Superfund sites, we have a total of 38. 21 of them are in Maricopa. You have some sites in the rural areas of Arizona, like this one up in Pine Top Lakeside and also Prescott. So they are statewide. And this gives you an overall view of the Tucson sites, and you can kind of see that it's that they're spread out. You've got a few up kind of towards your northwest side, up near Miracle Mile, Flowing Wells. You've got the Tucson Tucson International Airport site that Teresa went over, and then of course the Davis Monthan. And then there's the Broadway Pantano one that she talked about as well. But the brown spots, I could say that's your state Superfund sites. The green would be the federal, and then the kind of off brown is the DoD sites. And this map is available on our website as well. So not only can we help you out with Superfund information, that's specifically what Teresa and I are here for, but ADQ can also help with the other line items on that seller disclosure statement to help you get that information that you need. So we put that up on here too on how ADQ can assist you. The big one, which is why Lynette is here today, is the septic tanks. And you can see the lines that relates to. And in just a minute, she's going to go over that program, those regulations, and the ask that the program has for all of you. Next slide. So Teresa also mentioned at the beginning, contact information, phone numbers. Well, now who do we call if we need to fill out those lines on the disclosure statement? So this is some of the items. This is their web links and their direct phone numbers. Teresa earlier talked about if you know of any commercial properties or you're involved in commercial properties, that's our voluntary mediation program. Definitely reach out to them. If you do know of anybody that wants to buy or has bought property, they help expedite the process, get it cleaned up, and get it back into economic development and use. So I believe with that is our next speaker. Take it away. Oh, actually, real quick, any questions on the wharf information before we jump into on-site septic?
I don't have any questions that have come in yet, but I have a question of my own if I could ask it at this point. So realtors, we sell property not just in cities, but in outlying areas. So in the underground storage tanks, if you have a ranch that might have a diesel tank or something that's buried on that ranch, is that a registered tank? Is that something that we could find if it actually exists?
Yeah, we're actually going to show you our live action web page, and that is one of the layers that you can actually activate to see if in your area if there is a underground storage tank or leaking underground storage tanks. My understanding is all underground storage tanks have to be registered, so we would know that, and it should be registered here, whether they're private or commercial is my understanding. So we'll show you how you can find out if you have those near your property when we get to the end of the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. For anyone who has questions, if you'll put those in the chat box, then I will make certain that we get them to our presenters today.
Okay. So if there's no other questions, we'll have the next presenter come on up.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so I will be talking about the on-site wastewater treatment facilities and the notice of transfer that has to take place when the property is being sold or is being transferred from one owner to the other. Next slide, please. So we estimate that we have about 600,000 systems across the state of Arizona. This encompasses both private systems, which could be in a homeowner's backyard, or it could be a commercial system. And we believe that there's about 10,000 new systems that are being added every year due to the growth that the state is experiencing at the moment. Next slide. Collectively, all our on-site systems are the biggest wastewater generator. And what we did here is we compared it to the 91st Avenue wastewater treatment plant, which is the largest treatment plant in Arizona. It's located here in Phoenix and generates about 230 million gallons per day, treats 230 million gallons per day. Collectively across the state, our on-site systems are generating 270 million gallons per day. So it's much more than our treatment plant here in Phoenix. And the thing about the on-site systems is there's no monitoring that happens. These are located mostly in rural areas. There's very limited maintenance that has occurred in them or is occurring. And there is no testing of private drinking water wells at the moment. So we don't have any monitoring data or any information as to how these wells are performing. Next slide. So the notice of transfer falls under the on-site rules. We have what we call the type 4 general permits. They encompass both the sewage collection system rules, which are your sewer lines connected to a wastewater treatment plant like the 91st Avenue plant, or there are on-site wastewater treatment systems, which could be anything from a septic tank to something that produces more clear effluent like an aerobic system. They're housed under Title 18, Chapter 9 of the Arizona Administrative Code, and it covers all the on-site permits that you could potentially get for a site, whether it's a homeowner or a commercial site. Next slide, please. So most of these systems, because there's no requirement in rule that requires homeowners or commercial properties to produce information, sometimes the notice of transfer and the report of inspection requirements is the only time that that system is being checked. Our rules were established in 2001. We do have some older guidance rules that were in place before the 2001 rule. And we know that there's systems that happen in the ground 50, 60, 70 years. There's also very limited operation and maintenance requirement for these systems. So a lot of the times we hear our homeowners say they've had a system for 20 years and they've never really done anything with it. So we want to mention that surfacing sewage can lead to the transmission of insect-borne diseases. So there's a great importance of maintaining that system. And inadequately treated sewage could contaminate drinking water. So a septic tank that has not been maintained that could potentially have a leak or a disposal field that is not adequately sized could potentially lead to some of these issues. They do end up being a major public health, and we are addressing that during our current rulemaking that we are working on. Next slide. Within 6 months of the property transfer, there's a series of steps that the seller has to take into account, and the buyer as well. The seller does have to retain a qualified inspector, and they do have to produce what's called the report of inspection. This inspection report is used by the inspector to go out, verify the system, make sure that everything is working fine. They detail the type of system that's in there, estimate the time, the type of maintenance that's required, any upgrades that are needed or any repairs that are needed, and they usually pump the tank. The seller has to provide that to the buyer. So they provide not only the inspection report, but any information that is associated with that system. If there's an existing permit, and if there are any operation and maintenance manuals or documents that exist for that system, then it's the responsibility of the seller to provide that to the buyer. The buyer or the escrow provider then completes the notice of transfer online before submitting the $50 transfer fee to ADEQ, and they do have 15 days after the property is transferred to do that. Next slide. So in order to retain a qualified inspector, they have to meet these different items that you see there. They have to have working knowledge of the system. They do have to be inspector trained and have a certificate from the National Association of Wastewater Technicians. You'll see the link on the right-hand side. And they have to be one of the following. They either have to be a registered professional engineer of the state of Arizona, a registered sanitarian, or a contractor. They either can be a licensed septic hauler or a wastewater treatment operator. If you want to find out whether an inspector has a training certificate, you can go to the NOT site and you can search for an inspector to identify if they are trained to do the inspection. Next slide. EPA has several resources for homeowners and rental properties. And I want to emphasize that this doesn't just apply to a homeowner system. This is also applicable to commercial sites. You can find some information in there on how to maintain your system and how to do some basic maintenance, especially for the conventional septic tank to disposal field, which are our most simplest systems. And when it comes to the more complex systems, usually the manufacturer will provide you with some resources on how to properly maintain that system. So I encourage you as the realtor to take a look at some of these resources. It provides you with some valuable information that you can then provide to the future homeowner or the future commercial site owner on how to properly maintain their system. Next slide. We do have a survey that you can go ahead and fill out. We recently improved our report of inspection form, but we are looking to improve the notice of transfer process. As I mentioned earlier, we are working on a rule update associated with all our on-site systems, and that includes the notice of transfer process. If you're interested, please go ahead and take this survey. It provides us with valuable information that we can then use to develop some rules that are effective in ensuring that the systems are properly maintained.
Yeah, you all are the end users of this process, and they've been finding that maybe there's some aspects that maybe are confusing or it's not getting used as well as it should or something like that. So they really, I just want to add to what Letta said, we really want to hear from you. What works well, what doesn't work well. The more people that sign up and take this survey, the better information we're going to have when we do our rule making, make this a better rule, I guess.
Yeah.
To make it understandable so that we protect what we need to protect, but also that you all, that it's clear for all of you. So please, I just want to emphasize again, please take some time and fill out that survey for us. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would like to subscribe to find out what's going on within our program, you can go to the ADEQ website at azdeq.gov. At the bottom, you can see the subscribe button and you can click on on-site wastewater treatment. Again, as I discussed, we are going through an extensive rule update. It's going to change the way that our rules are currently laid out, including the operation and maintenance requirements. And it may include some monitoring requirements for some commercial sites and larger systems. So I encourage you to go in, look at some of the information that's listed there, look at some of the documents that have been produced already. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me as well. I can go ahead and forward you the links to our rule update page. So you can be in the know as to what are some of the potential changes that we're seeing and things that may affect you. And I believe that's the last slide. Are there any questions from anyone?
No questions.
Okay. Well,
Nothing's come in.
Okay.
I just want to point out too that the way that you would subscribe to find out about any of the other sites that you might be interested in is a similar process. So like if you wanted to know about wharf sites, you hit subscribe and you go to, I think it says waste programs,
Wait,
and you'll get a list of those sites as well. So you can subscribe to multiple lists, and any kind of environmental issue that is of concern to you, you can subscribe and get information about that way.
So go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah. So one of the biggest things on a question we get asked a lot is if you could draw your attention to the bottom of your screen. ADQ cannot assess whether a Superfund or wharf site will impact property values. That is your county assessor's office. All we are here today to do, and all we can do, is just provide you with the information about that site, where it is, and what that means. But in terms of property values, that is not something that ADQ can help out with. So I just want to make that clear. We have 2 websites with a lot of information, not only about Superfund sites, but like we've been mentioning, a lot of other, environmental issues, concerns, information, all sorts of stuff. It's our my community page, as well as we have an interactive GIS map that we can actually go to now, and that's going to tie in the question we had earlier about the tanks. And we're going to show you how to navigate the website so that you can find on your own, or you can call us too. I mean, we'll totally take your call, but in case it's, early morning or late at night, wherever you work best, you can search by address for a Superfund site, and you can find out, is my property located in a site or not? So we're going to pull that up, and what I'd like, if somebody could put in the chat and then relay it to us, an address of maybe a listing you have in Tucson, and we'll pull that address up and we'll show you how you can find out if it's in a Superfund site or not.
So is everybody able to see the homepage of the maps? Okay. So this would be what you would see across the top of our AZDQ homepage. And to get to this particular maps, all you do is click on where it says eMaps. So it's easy to find. It's right across the top of the page. And then we're going to scroll down to waste programs, but you can see here all of these lovely things you can look for. We are going to go down here to Superfunds, wharf, and DOD sites, and then that will open the map. Now, be patient here. This is the patience part because this is a big file, and sometimes it takes a little longer to load than you would like. So be patient. See,
We have an address.
I think someone typed something in there.
Yes, and they are
Yes.
fellow Amphi Panther. Woo woo.
Okay, let's almost loaded.
All right, so Teresa, can you I'll tell it to you, and then you can do
Okay.
kind of one thing at a time. Yeah, depending on your system, it can take a while, so please be patient. Don't think it's not working. Okay, it's 2950 East 1st Street. We don't have it's 857, I don't know the zip code.
Tucson? 857.
Well, just put Tucson. That probably that should be enough. So let's try that and see. See, I'm from Tucson. I know every zip code is 857 something.
There is your site. That look, whoever typed it in, does that look like your site? Just, so I'm going to scroll out. It's near Himmel Park.
Okay. Yes.
And
She says
okay.
yes.
So there's no Superfund or wharf sites anywhere around there. But let's just keep scrolling out so we see one. So over here, across Campbell, this is Park Euclid. So if you were looking at an address that was over in this area, you would see that you'd be right next to the Park Euclid wharf site. And if I keep scrolling out, here's my 7th Street in Arizona. So what you can also do is say I did do an address that was close. Wait, the other way. That was close to Park Euclid. I can click on that and it gives me this little box. And then when I click on more info, and I'm not sure if this will work because of do you see the site? It'll give you the information about the site, and you get when it was placed on a registry. That means when they kind of like did their assessment and said, yeah, this place needs to be cleaned up. What the approximate boundaries of the site are, what the contaminants of concern are, and I'll tell you this is a dry cleaners because of these things right here. They will tell you what they've been working on, what the status is, has it, what part of the processes it is. Are they still looking at it, or has it reached the part they're trying to do a remedy to it? And then one important thing here at the bottom of your site, you see where it says Community Advisory Board. So one of the amendments to CERCLA was Sarah, and Sarah said that the federal government had to do community outreach and involvement at Superfund sites. And so Arizona basically said the same thing. So what we have at each one of these sites is a community advisory board. They hold meetings at least once a year, sometimes more. If there's a lot of stuff going on, we'll have meetings, every few months. And these are open to the public. So if you do have someone that's, sees one of these meetings come up and they were thinking about buying land near there, have them come to the community meetings. They are open to the public, and community advisory board members are people just like you and I who live, work in the area, who just have an interest in making sure that it's cleaned up and can provide us with information about the site, about the community, and give their input into what they think that the process should be. So that is something to be considered as an outreach to anybody that you're working with that might be considering purchasing property near one of these.
So the other thing that's great about our website also is you can print anything out from here. You can print out the information, the history, the maps. We don't provide letters that state, yes, you are, no, you're not in a Superfund site. So if you do need any kind of documentation, go ahead and go to our website and print out whatever you may need. And that's what you can, and that's what your buyer, your seller, whoever needs it, that's what they can use in one sense. So I just wanted to make sure and point that out. There was a question I saw about how often is the contamination tested or sampled. It really depends. I know that's a great answer on the site and where the site is in the process. If a site is further along in the process and we have active remedy, they may only sample it once or twice a year just to make sure that the remedy is working. If they're in active remedy, if they're in active investigation and they're trying to figure out where the site is and what's going on, they could sample it more often. So it really depends on where in the process and exactly what they're looking for will determine how often they are testing the groundwater or the soil vapor or the soil gas and that kind of aspect. So if you have a certain site in mind, we can absolutely get that frequency for you. So just reach out to us and let us know. Looks like Teresa's pulling up the other address just to kind of compare and what we have that. And that's down in South Tucson. It looks like south of Valencia. And she's going to scroll out and you can see there's not much out there either.
Until you get to the airport.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're miles and miles and miles away. So you would not disclose that you're in a Superfund site now. But let us show you what else you can find on our website. So if you go,
I'm gonna show them though what it would look like.
Perfect. Okay. We have one more, and then we'll get to the question about tanks and like what else you can find on our website.
So this is where Wendy and I are calling from right now. And we sit right in the middle of a wharf site. So we are just down the street from the Capitol building. And if I scroll out, you'll see that the color over here is green. This is a Superfund, federal Superfund site. This is a state Superfund site. And so that gives you an idea of what you would see. So if I was looking at this address and I had originally pulled it up, it's shaded brown. So that would say that is a Superfund, a wharf Superfund site right there. Okay, and other layers. So what was that address again? 7723 West Tite?
Correct. 7723 West Tite Line, L-I-N-E.
And that's, so I'm going to go back to that site and I'm going to open some other layers for you. So if you have questions about storage tanks or any of that other stuff, let's see. Here's my site. So if you look at this little stack of pancakes, that's your layer list. When I open that, I can see I've got all these other things. I gotta move this because you guys don't. Your faces are on top of my thing. So I'm gonna scroll down here to USTs. So these are storage tanks. I click on that. Close that for just a second so I can scroll out. Where are my storage tanks?
Click on the other ones too. The releases and the financial assurance, and maybe
It
that'll.
seems to be kind of like stuck.
Oh, because there's so many. No,
Yeah, you see a lot of little green dots.
so just let it load. Oh,
One.
there you go.
So these little green dots are your storage tanks.
There's some more. There you go.
There you go. So when you get into where the real city is, you can see that there's quite a few of these storage tanks. So I'm going to turn off the releases and the financial assistance. These are just the storage tanks. And then I can also do other things like, let me scroll back to that site. I'm going to unclick the storage tanks because they get a little busy. And let me go back into my site. And let's say I want to do something totally unrelated to environmental. I just want to know, I'm going to sell this house and these people want to know what the closest school is. So I can also look at schools. And then I can scroll out and see where the schools are located. So there's my closest school. And if I click on it, it gives me the name of the school and what grade levels it is and all of that. You can also look for like zip codes, county lines, districts, like jurisdictional districts for like voting and stuff like that. All of that stuff you can see on this map. So it's useful for a lot of different things.
I know we had another question, but is there any other questions besides the one on the chat about the mining contaminations? If not, so mining contaminations, right? Is that the question? So if it's a Superfund, if a mine is a Superfund site, then it would show up under the Superfund program. But if it's a abandoned mine or a mine under another program, we would probably have to go to that program's website and take a look at that. Like there's a mine out in Arsaco, like that would show up because that's a federal site. But if there's mining contamination on a property, my understanding actually is we don't have a layer for that. And so I think it would be specific for where that address or property is, and you would give us a call, and we would try to put you in line with the right group that would deal with that contamination that might be in that area. How often is information updated? This is actually live action, I guess is the best way to say it. It all feeds together with other websites. So like I could put an update on the Wharf Superfund page. I could submit that today and it would be on the website tomorrow. This is all connected to other websites and other layers that we have relationships with. So this is all, and so we can't control how often those are updated, but ours can be updated as information happens.
So Wendy, I just highlighted the Iron King mine just so
okay.
you can see that
as
one.
A mine site. Okay.
Yeah, as a mine site, because that's a federal Superfund site.
And I believe that at the moment, you can't find the septic in that map right now, but we're collecting a lot of data to try and get those into a similar map so that we'll be able to find them as we need them.
Yeah. Are there any other questions?
I'm not seeing any, ladies.
Oh, do you collaborate with ADWR or Arizona Corporation Commission? So actually, Yes, I do believe that through this interactive website, you can also look for some well information. It's another layer. It's called AZ Mapper. And so you can get some well information from here, and then it should pull up a link to connect you to ADWR site to get information about certain wells. Like I think like the 55 number and that kind of aspect. In terms of the Arizona Corporation Commission, that's a question I'm not sure if our website is linked with anything to do with their website. Was your question specifically about the linkage of the website and where we're kind of collaborating on the information?
So bear with me, I've got all the noise happening right with my office party, sorry. The Corporation Commission is who oversees and regulates private wells. And so, right, so I think if I understood Lyneth's presentation, the information that we do not have is for individual private owners, but if it's a private water company, right, that should be captured by you all, or no? Because ACC oversees the private water company.
So if it's a private water company, then they would be regulated by either ADQ, Maricopa County, or Pima County. And if and I believe we should be able. I honestly don't know if we can see water systems on here. But at one point in time, I know they were trying to look, so you could go in there and look. Oh, actually, that's more through the My Community page. I think through the My Community page, you can get a little bit more in-depth information about water systems and sampling and wells. But all wells drilled in Arizona have to go through ADWR. They are in charge of the wells and the registration. The actual company that's a water system would be through the Corporation Commission.
Yeah, and it becomes valuable information if you have a site that does not have an on-site system. If the buyer is looking to put in an on-site system, they want to know the distance to those wells because you have to meet proper setbacks. So you can't construct an on-site system within 100 feet of a well. So looking for these wells and getting that information, someone who's interested in buying that property is something that I highly recommend. We've seen some people come in and buy lots that are too small, and small homes are becoming very popular right now. But the problem is that our rules currently do not allow you to install a system that is less than 100 feet from a well.
That's a very important detail.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's the same with Superfund sites. If there is somebody who wants to drill a well, or a company that wants to drill a well, ADWR will send that information to us to make sure if it's too close or not close enough, like if it's going to have any impact to the wharf site, if it's within a certain feet of the wharf site. So we do collaborate with them very well on that end, but that's a very good point, Lyneth, that you brought up too. So to answer that drinking water question, Teresa went ahead, and here's drinking water, and it says view map. So I think the My Community, which is that other link on that page, this gives you different environmental information that you can get. That map that we showed you was kind of specific. So this is the My Community page part of DEQ, and she went to the drinking water, and this shows you some of the wells, some of the drinking water sites. And I believe these are sites that have an issue going on, which is why it's coming up. So
yeah,
click on
these
the
all
more
have.
info.
This has selenium contamination.
Yeah. This is just an example. So yeah, so it had a notice of a contaminant issue or something. So, so does that kind of answer the question about the drinking water systems?
I think one of the major facts I was most struck by when I started real estate school was the fact that the state of Arizona did not start counting wells until 1980, right? And so that's why when you say we think we have 600,000, right? It's because we actually don't know.
Right.
And so, so of course, it's a, you know, one of my things, right? To see how it is that we're getting better at identifying, right? In order to know what facilities we have, where they are, right? What their condition is, especially in light of our water crisis, right? We
Right.
are, the can has been kicked down the road far enough, and now we have some, you know, difficult decisions to make.
Right. Yeah, I mean, ADWR records go back to a certain point, but I mean, if they don't, like if there's a transfer and they don't submit it, you don't know. But that is some of the issues we do have in the rural areas, is we do the best we can off of the resources that we have, but there could be some out there that we don't know. And that's where our community advisory boards come into play, and outreach. It's like, if you know somebody, have them contact us, we'll test the well, you know, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, and then the same with the septic symptoms too, right?
Yeah, I also wanted to mention, it wasn't in a presentation, but it's something that we've been hearing about lately. The notice of transfer is a requirement. So even if you have the buyer and the seller agree that they don't need to do the report of inspection or the notice of transfer, they're completely okay with taking the system as is. We need to have that notice of transfer. There's no exemption in rule. So you have to follow that process. This provides us with that information on existing systems, and it allows us to continue collecting information on what's out there and what type of systems exist. So just want to remind everyone, even if the buyer seller agree, that notice of transfer has to be done. And if you're in the Tucson area, you submit that report of inspection to Pima County. You create an account, there's a fee associated with that, and then you submit a notice of transfer to them as well.
All right. Well, that is all we have. Unless there's any other questions or comments and stuff, I'll turn control back over to Lisa and Tucson Association of Realtors.
Great. Yes,
Thank you, Nancy.
So, and as a reminder for those of you who joined us, I'm going to try my video, and again, I'm apologizing right for my office party. We will be sharing the recording and the handouts that you all shared with us. We thank you so much for taking the time. We will have you again because I think these are important reminders for us to make sure we understand all of the resources that are available to us in order to ensure that we are doing our due diligence and providing our clients with the most accurate and up-to-date information possible, right?
That's right. Yeah, and please